Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into, well, the constant pull of our digital lives,
Hmm.
and more importantly, how to actually break free from it, at least sometimes. This whole deep dive is about digital detoxing.
Yeah, exactly. And our source material for this one, it's a really practical guide.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses specifically on how to unplug effectively.
Right.
So not just the general idea, but the actual actionable steps you can take.
Okay, good. So, our mission here is basically to pull out the most important insights, those practical steps from the guide, and sort of distill them down into usable knowledge for you listening.
Yeah.
How can you find that balance with technology, that sweet spot, without feeling like you're totally missing out on everything?
Well, I think it starts with understanding what's really going on. The guide sets the scene perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledges that feeling, I think we all know it,
Right.
of being sort of tethered to your phone.
Yeah.
And look, it's not about completely abandoning technology, right? But it is about recognizing when it stops being just a tool and starts becoming, well, something else.
And that's something else the source describes. It sounds pretty intense. It says the phone can turn into a, quote, stress-inducing time vacuum.
Wow.
And that's largely down to the constant notifications, right? And just the endlessness of the scroll.
Absolutely. And what I found really fascinating was the personal experience the author of the guide shared.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when they first tried a digital detox, they were apparently just consumed by worry about missing out. Urgent emails, someone needing them right now.
That classic FOMO.
Totally. But the discovery, they found
Yes.
something far more valuable, actual mental space, noticeably better sleep, and interestingly, fostering real, genuine connections in the real world.
That contrast, the fear versus what actually happened, that seems really key.
It is.
And the guy points out some surprisingly common habits that are actually kind of red flags, signs you might be overdue for a digital break. Like that almost immediate urge, checking your phone within like 5 minutes of waking up,
Oh, yeah, guilty.
or feeling those phantom vibrations, thinking your phone buzzed when it actually didn't.
Uh-huh. Those are almost physical things, aren't they?
Yeah. But there are others too, according to the source, like
Yeah.
finding it genuinely hard to finish a task without instinctively reaching for social media,
Okay.
noticing a real drop in your sleep quality,
Mhm.
feeling that little spike of anxiety when your battery gets low or you lose service.
Right. Or even just feeling anxious when your phone isn't, like, right there within arm's reach.
Exactly. It's when checking becomes less of a choice,
Yeah.
more of an automatic reflex.
That automatic reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels almost involuntary sometimes.
And apparently there's solid science behind why it's so tough to break. The source cites Harvard Medical School research suggesting our brains, well, they're just not wired for this kind of nonstop digital stimulation
Mm-hmm.
and those little dopamine hits we get from notifications. The research indicates they can create addiction patterns that are actually surprisingly similar to, substances.
Wow. Okay, that really underlines the potential impact on our well-being, doesn't it?
It does.
The guide also mentions a study, I think it was BMC Public Health. It found that screen time beyond just 2 hours a day can significantly impact mental well-being.
Just 2 hours.
Yeah, especially for women, apparently.
That's a much lower number than I think most people would guess.
I agree.
So the takeaway here is if you notice you're feeling maybe irritable without your phone or finding it hard to really focus on a conversation with someone who's right there,
Uh-huh.
the source suggests your brain might just be screaming for a break.
Makes sense.
They even point to resources like the Center for Humane Technology Assessment.
Yeah.
It's like a quick way for you to gauge your own relationship with tech.
Okay, so acknowledging the problem, that's step one. How do we actually move from that awareness to, building a plan, something realistic for your life?
Right.
Because the guide really emphasizes it's not about some extreme all-or-nothing thing that just sets you up to fail.
No, definitely not.
It's more about establishing small, consistent boundaries, things that can genuinely make a huge difference over time.
Small steps feel way more doable, don't they?
Totally.
And one powerful starting point the source suggests is implementing these phone-free zones in your home.
Ah.
A classic example, and maybe the most impactful, is making the bedroom a complete no-phone sanctuary, especially after a certain time, like, say, 9 p.m.
And there's a clear reason for that one, right? The guide cites the blue light.
Exactly. That blue light from screens, it's known to mess with your melatonin production.
Right, which makes it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
So creating a screen-free bedroom is highlighted as one of the quickest ways to actually see improvements in your sleep.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so beyond the bedroom, what other specific actionable steps does the guide suggest for building out that plan?
Well, things like committing to just one screen-free hour first thing in the morning.
Imagine starting your day maybe reading a book or journaling instead of just diving straight into the digital chaos.
Yeah, that sounds nice. They also recommend using the tools you probably already have on your phone, right?
Yes.
Ah,
Like using screen time on an iPhone or digital well-being on Android, you can actually set limits on those specific apps you tend to get lost in.
that's smart.
And a really simple but effective one. Just turn off non-essential notifications.
Yeah.
Seriously, you probably don't need an alert every single time someone likes an old photo.
Definitely not. What else?
Two other clever tricks mentioned were trying the grayscale display setting.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Apparently, it makes your phone significantly less visually appealing, so less tempting to just pick up and scroll.
Huh.
And also, scheduling specific limited check-in times for email and messages instead of that constant monitoring all day long.
Right, breaking that cycle. Now, here's where I think a lot of people, myself included sometimes, stumble. It's not always putting the phone down that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it's figuring out what to do instead of scrolling.
Yes, that void.
Exactly.
Right.
But the guide suggests this is actually where the real transformation can begin.
It's about filling that space you've created with something, I don't know, richer.
Precisely. The author shares their own story. I think they rediscovered watercolor painting
Oh, cool.
and found those hours genuinely more fulfilling than the time they used to spend just endlessly scrolling social media feeds.
And this really connects with some research they mentioned too, doesn't it? A University of Pennsylvania study.
That's right. It found that simply limiting social media use, get this, to just 30 minutes per day,
Wow, only 30 minutes.
significantly reduced participants' feelings of loneliness and depression.
That's huge.
And they also reported feeling much more present, more engaged in their actual face-to-face interactions.
So less social media can actually lead to more real connection. That's fascinating.
It is, yeah.
So what are some concrete ideas the guide suggests for filling that screen-free time? What activities?
Well, they suggest things like creating a cozy reading nook that you actually want to use,
Okay.
or starting a journal, maybe focused on something specific and enjoyable, like wine tasting notes or something,
Ah, I like that one.
or taking up a hands-on hobby, something that requires focus and uses your body knitting, maybe woodworking, spending more time cooking, experimenting in the kitchen.
Right, getting physical.
Also implementing minimalist home organization techniques, decluttering your physical space can kind of mirror that mental clarity you're aiming for.
I can see that.
And a lovely, maybe slightly old-fashioned one, starting a letter writing practice with friends or family.
Oh, actual mail. That feels really special these days.
Doesn't it?
Okay, but let's tackle the big one. The elephant in the room for so many people. That fear of missing something important. FOMO. How do you navigate this without just getting sucked right back into the digital overwhelm?
Yeah, that's a major hurdle. The guide really tackles this head on. It stresses being intentional about your connectivity. They introduce the idea of structured digital breaks, which, interestingly, are even recommended by places like the Mayo Clinic.
Right.
And a key part of that is communicating your limited availability to other people so their expectations are clear.
Managing expectations. That's smart. So what are some practical strategies the source offers for staying connected, but intentionally, while you're unplugging?
Okay, so one is setting up auto replies for your emails during dedicated detox times. Lets people know you're not ignoring them, just offline.
Simple, effective.
Another is using features like VIP lists or favorites on your phone for those absolutely critical contacts. That way, you only get notified by the people who really might need to reach you urgently, not just anyone.
Filtering the noise.
Exactly. Scheduling specific check-in windows also works well for the author. They suggest examples like maybe 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. It just creates structure.
Yeah, boundaries.
And a really clever idea, creating if-then rules with your closest contacts. Like, hey, if it's genuinely urgent, call me twice in a row.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it builds trust and gives you an emergency channel without needing to be constantly available.
Okay, that makes sense. But even with the best plans, that nagging feeling, that FOMO, the fear of missing out, it can still creep in and try to derail things when you're unplugging, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a real challenge for many. But what's truly insightful here is the Stanford research the guide mentions.
What did that find?
It found that social media often creates this illusion of missing out on experiences, but often these are just curated highlights that aren't actually that significant to our overall happiness or life satisfaction in the long run.
That totally reframes it, doesn't it? It's not necessarily real life you're missing.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the author talks about journaling through their FOMO during a detox.
Uh-huh.
And later, looking back, they realized how little of what they worried about missing actually mattered or had any lasting impact. Because social media is, by its very nature, a highlight reel. It's not reality.
Right, it's the curated best bits.
Which raises this really critical alternative perspective the guide encourages you to think about. What about the fear of missing out on real life? Because you're perpetually glued to your phone.
Ooh, flip the script. I like that. That shift in perspective is really powerful.
It is.
So, what specific strategies does the source suggest for actually combating that digital FOMO when it hits?
Okay, so one is keeping that dedicated FOMO journal we mentioned. Track what you thought you missed. Looking back can be really
See
eye-opening.
how much didn't matter.
Exactly. Reminding yourself consciously that social media shows highlights, not the messy reality. Actively planning meaningful in-person gatherings during your detox time helps counteract any feelings of isolation too.
Fill the time positively.
Right. Asking a trusted friend to maybe act as a filter, to notify you only if something truly essential comes up that you need to know.
Okay, outsourcing the worry a bit.
Sort of, yeah. And perhaps the most important one, consciously focusing on that fear of missing out on your actual present life because you're constantly online.
Yeah, prioritize the real world. Ultimately, though, this isn't just about doing a digital cleanse for a weekend and then going back to normal, is it?
No, not at all.
The guide makes it really clear the goal is building a healthier, more intentional relationship with technology for the long haul.
Precisely. They introduce this concept of digital minimalism, which isn't necessarily about using less technology overall,
Oh,
but using it more purposefully, mindfully, instead of just mindlessly reacting to every single ping and notification and urge to scroll.
okay. Purposeful use.
And the key isn't perfection, which is relieving. It's consistency. The guide suggests that sticking to reasonable boundaries, even just, say, 80% of the time, can make a really remarkable difference.
That 80-20 rule feels much more achievable, doesn't it? Less pressure.
Definitely.
So what are some of those sustainable digital wellness practices the guide recommends weaving into your life long term?
Okay, so things like doing a monthly app audit, like ruthlessly deleting apps that don't genuinely serve you or bring you value anymore.
Screen cleaning for your phone.
Kind of, yeah. Establishing regular tech-free times that your whole household respects, if possible. Like during meals or specific hours in the morning and evening.
Creating routines.
Exactly. Creating actual physical distance between you and your devices is surprisingly effective. Like charging your phone in another room overnight, not by your bed.
Right, break the bedside habit.
Ditching your phone as your alarm clock
Yeah.
and using, a real actual alarm clock. It's a simple change, but it has big benefits for not grabbing your phone first thing.
Good one.
And maybe practicing a weekly reset day where tech use is minimal. Sunday is often suggested as a good candidate for that.
So it sounds like taking back control really starts with these small, consistent steps. Just being more mindful about how and when you engage.
That's the core of it.
And the source notes that, yeah, there might be some initial discomfort when you first unplug, but that feeling apparently transforms pretty quickly into a sense of, like, liberation and presence.
And what's truly fascinating is how the author describes the benefits that emerge. They're often subtle, but profound.
Like what?
Like everyday moments just become richer. You actually taste your coffee, you notice the sunlight of the room, you hear the nuances in conversations with loved ones,
Yeah.
because you're not constantly distracted by that ping in your pocket.
Being more present.
Exactly. And paradoxically, you often find yourself feeling more genuinely connected to the people who truly matter. Precisely because you're spending less time mindlessly connected online.
That makes sense. Your digital world, look, it isn't going anywhere, right? It'll still be there.
Absolutely.
But you might just find you need it a little less than you thought. The real freedom here seems to be about choosing how and when you connect on your terms, not your phone's terms.
Well said. And that really raises an important final question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Yeah, what's that?
What real-life moment are you actually worried about missing out on if you don't create some digital boundaries?